Hi everyone, welcome to another learning episode. Today I'm going to be sharing a teaching demonstration in one of the lessons I had during the first quarter of my quantitative research. By the way, for those who do not know me yet, I have been teaching research for 2 years already. I teach quantitative and qualitative research to senior high school students. And this is a new year and I'm going to be expecting to upload more learning videos for all of you. Thank you for sticking around. And with that, without further ado, let's start with our teaching demonstration. Hi everyone, before we proceed our discussion proper, let us have a review first. Let me ask you this question: what is the difference between quantitative and qualitative research? As you remember, with our discussion previously, I talked about the two general types of research, which are the quantitative research and the qualitative research. Today, I want you to cite the differences of the characteristics of quantitative and qualitative research. As the name suggests, the quantitative research, from the root word quantity, it is a type of research that seeks to determine quantifiable data or numerical data. Meanwhile, the qualitative research, as the name suggests, its root word is quality, which requires a more in-depth analysis. Its method is interview. It could also use observation. It's an analysis of the words given by the participants of the study, their behavior, their perceptions, their thoughts. Now today, I'm going to be sharing a research design that is a quantitative research in nature. But before that, let me show you a picture, two different pictures, and I want you to cite the differences of these two pictures. Let us figure out first the differences between these two pictures. Now, what are they doing in these two pictures? Both are actually doing the same thing. Both of these pictures show a public speaking activity. The person standing in front of an audience is actually speaking a certain topic. Let's give a rating to these two individuals doing a public speaking activity and observe their gestures, their manner, the way they stand in front of an audience. We'll start with the first speaker, who is wearing a colored blue sweatshirt. So I'm going to be rating this person 4 out of 10 because he seemed very nervous. As you can see in his gesture, he's wiping his sweat. He's uncomfortable speaking in front of an audience. Meanwhile, the second picture, the one wearing a coat and tie, his hands are very open. His eye contact is intact with the audience. He seemed very confident, so I'm going to be giving him 10 out of 10. Now, based on the description, based on how we gave a certain numerical coefficient to their speaking performance, what do you think the type of quantitative research design we are referring to in this lesson? So based on the previous activity that we had, we described those two public speakers based on the observation and using numerical data, right? What do you think is this type of quantitative research design? This type of quantitative research design is a descriptive research. As the name suggests, from the root word descriptive, it means it describes. So once we are using a quantitative research design, which is a descriptive research, it is actually describing a certain phenomenon using numerical data. And to understand more about the characteristics of descriptive research, I'm going to be giving you some sample descriptive research titles, starting off with the first one. The first research title under descriptive research is Managerial Skills of Grade 12 Cookery Students. Now, what are the two things we're going to describe in this research title? The first question is, what is the phenomenon being described in this research title? What is the situation we are describing here? So, the phenomenon being described in this research title is the managerial skills. For the second question, whose population is being described in this research title? The population being described in this research title is the grade 12 cookery students. Now, what are the two elements being described in our descriptive research? So, it described two elements, which are the phenomenon being described and the population being studied. Now, based on the example earlier, again, what is a descriptive research? What is one of the characteristics of a descriptive research? So, again, one of the characteristics of descriptive research is it describes the characteristics of the population and the phenomenon being studied. Now let's figure out in the next slides what are the other characteristics of descriptive research aside from describing phenomenon and population of the study. Using the same research title again, managerial skills of grade 12 students. My question is, how many variable or variables is or are measured in this study? Now when we talk about variable, it's is similar to the phenomenon being studied. So what is the phenomenon or the variable being measured in this research title? It's the managerial skills. Now, what is the other characteristic of descriptive research aside from it describes two elements such as the population of the study and the phenomenon being described? The other characteristic of descriptive research is it measures only one variable. With our research title earlier, we only measure one variable, and that is the managerial skills. Now, for the third question, how do we measure the managerial skills? If we are asked of this question, it means that it is asking of the statistical tool we are going to use to measure the managerial skills of grade 12 students. In this case, what statistical tool are we going to use if we are measuring the managerial skills of our grade 12 students? So the statistical tool we are going to use is the mean. It's the average of the set of data that we gather. Now, for what is our third characteristic? The third characteristic of a descriptive research is it uses descriptive statistics such as mean. Let's read the research title number 2, Prevalent Marketing Strategies of Fast Food Industries in Cada City. Now, what is the phenomenon being described in this research title? Correct? The phenomenon being described is the prevalent marketing strategies, of whose population is being described in this research title. The population being described are the fast food industries in Cadiz City. Now, next question, how many variables is or are measured in the study? So what is the variable? The variable is the prevalent marketing strategies. So again, if it's descriptive research, it only measures one variable. So once you're writing a descriptive research title, it's no-brainer because you only have to remember that if you want to pursue a descriptive research, you need to make sure that you have to describe two elements in your research title, the phenomenon being described or the variable being described, and the second one, the population being studied. For the next question, how do we measure the prevalent marketing strategies of fast food industries? Again, it seeks to answer the statistical tool we are going to use for this research study. Earlier, with our previous research title, which was about the managerial skills of grade 12 students, we will be using a descriptive statistic, which is the mean. What about in this case, since it's a different research title, Prevalent Marketing Strategies of Fast Food Industries in Cadiz City? Are we going to make use of mean again? Well, with this research study, it's going to be using a frequency as the descriptive statistical tool to be used, since we will prepare a list of marketing strategies already and then do a survey to the fast food industries in Cadiz City and let them choose which among the listed marketing strategies do they usually prefer to use or do they mostly employ to somehow promote their fast food industry. So in that case, we will be counting the most prevalent answers or the most frequently answered marketing strategy based on the survey that we will be conducting. So another characteristic of descriptive research is descriptive research uses descriptive statistics such as mean and frequency. Now for us to really master this lesson and to really identify what are the main characteristics of descriptive research, I'm going to be giving another set of sample research titles once again, and I am going to ask questions, and while watching the video you can actually say your answer and then later figure out if you have answered it correctly. Now for the first title, Study Habits of Grade 11 Cookery Students. Again, once we are writing a descriptive research, we only have to know that we have to describe two elements in our research study, the phenomenon being studied and the population being described. Now for this one, what is the phenomenon being described in this research title? The phenomenon or the variable we are going to describe are the study habits of whose population. The population being described in this research study is the grade 12 cookery students. What descriptive statistics are we going to use for this research study? So it's the same thing with the previous research title that we had, the prevalent marketing strategies, since we're going to list all the common study habits based on the literature that we have and allow our grade 11 cookery students to choose which among these study habits do they commonly use. So I'm going to be using a descriptive statistic, which is frequency. On to the next research title, Level of Communicative Competence of Hotel Receptionists. The same questions I asked earlier. What is the phenomenon being described in this research title? Again, it's no-brainer. It's in there. It's found in the research title right away. The phenomenon being described in this research title is the level of communicative competence. Now, the second question of whose population? The population being described in this research study are the hotel receptionists. Now, if earlier we will make use of frequency as our descriptive statistics, what about the descriptive statistic to be used in this research title? How are we going to measure the level of communicative competence of hotel receptionists? With this research title, we will be using a statistical tool, which is the mean, since it is a levels. We're going to rate our communicative competence from a certain range. So we will be using a statistical tool, which is the mean. Now, that is the last research title sample. Now, for our wrap up of this lesson, I want you to ask this question: what are the characteristics of a descriptive research? So, if you have remembered, we have three main characteristics of the descriptive research design. The first one is it describes a phenomenon or a population. Once you are working on a descriptive research, always remember that your title has to have these two elements, the phenomenon being described and the population being studied. For the second characteristic, it only has one variable or phenomenon being described. So it only measures one phenomenon. So because if it measures two variables already, then that is no longer a descriptive research. That's a different research design, which is we're going to talk about in our next episode. Now for the third characteristic, descriptive research uses descriptive statistics such as mean and frequency. So you have to figure out if your study allows you to use mean or if it is more appropriate to use frequency. And that's it. These are the three main characteristics of our descriptive research. I hope you have learned a thing or two from this episode, and see you on our next one. Keep on learning. Bye! Happy New Year!